Hello, and welcome back to Into the Viya Verse episode 4, highlighting the SAS Viya release 2023.04, the April release. This time we will dive into new updates in SAS Information Catalog, SAS Model Studio, SAS Intelligent Decisioning, and Visual Text Analytics. We will also be taking a look at a cool new application I built that you can use to find even more updates. But let's get into it. As we so often do, we start off this episode with SAS Information Catalog, where we see one particularly interesting enhancement. We had the ability to set contacts in SAS Information Catalog for data assets for a while now. Now we gained the ability to not only set single users, but also specify groups to interact with. So we can filter them up here to show only users or groups, and you can simply add the users as the data contact to your data assets, simplifying the way how you manage the contacts for a data asset. Now, let's jump further down in the analytics lifecycle and go to build models, where we see an enhancement to the light GBM capabilities of the gradient boosting node. If we click on it, we now gain the ability that if you have selected perform light GBM over here, you can now also activate the option to perform auto-tuning and specify the auto-tuning hyperparameters to your liking. So you have all the regularization options that you're familiar with. Let's jump over to SAS Intelligent Decisioning, where we maybe see the biggest highlight of this episode. The keen-eyed under you may directly notice the new icon we have gained at the bottom. Let's expand the menu and see what it's all about. It's called deployments. That's interesting. Let's click on it. People that have seen the SAS Model Manager deployments view will find this view very familiar. Here you can see where and how, when, which models, or better yet, decisions have been deployed to the different deployment targets that you have defined in your environment. This helps you to keep track of what's actually out there and how it's being used. Super useful feature. From Intelligent Decisioning, let's jump into SAS Studio, where before we dive into enhancements to SAS Studio Flow, I want to highlight two new capabilities within SAS Visual Text Analytics. First up, we see an extension to the LET concept rule creation and factual-based rule creation. We get the ability to specify clauses. So this signifies grammatical clauses within your sentences to be able to extract more precise the text and its relation to the whole sentence. And then we also see an enhancement to the application of these concepts on scoring. This is particularly interesting if you have multiple types of concepts that you want to apply onto your text. You can now use the option parse table out and the corresponding parse table in to save on the parsing costs of your data. When we take a look at the log, which I pre-ran, we can see here, this is the first time we applied this concept here. It takes real time a bit under a second, real time a bit over 3 seconds. And then when we apply for the second time, real and CPU time come together because we have already predefined the parsing and we don't have to redo it again. We can completely reuse those parsing results. Also, this parsing results are of course available as a cast table that you can view. I have here printed it to the log and you get all the interesting information for your parsing. Whether or not you use it is up to you, but you can get all the information and dig as deep down into it as you want, which is super cool in my opinion. Okay, let's take a look at the new steps that have been added. When we open up the steps menu, we find two new steps within here that enhance the visualization capabilities. And you also will notice that this new category has been added correspondingly, bar chart and bar line chart. They do pretty much what it says on the title. So let's right click them to open them up into a flow. And let's pull in the second one as well. And we will drag in the good old trusty SAS help library and get the cars data set in here. We will connect it up, first up to the bar one, and secondly to the bar line chart. Let's reorganize that it looks a bit nicer, and let's see what we can do within the bar chart. We can apply a filter, we can set the orientation, we can specify the role. Well, actually, we have to set the role. Let's do make, or let's do origin maybe. Sit OK. We will just leave everything else at default. You can, of course, also adjust the appearance of your bar chart to your liking. And let's take a look at the bar line chart. Very similar. We have to specify a category. Let's take origin again. And then we have to set the bar variable and line variable. So let's set for the bar, maybe the cylinders of the cars. And then for the line variable, we will use the MSRP of the cars. And let's run it. And let's take a look at our generated results. So we first up have our bar chart that was generated and then our bar line chart that was generated. Okay. Of course, always within those releases, I always present you the highlights, but there's much more. And you might already know the release notes application that is officially released, where you can select your product offerings and solutions and go through these releases. I have built a small application that's unofficial, of course, but I hope it helps you to deeper dive the capabilities that have been added. And all my code examples that I, for example, showed for the new parse table in and parse table out are available in here. It also directly links deep into the SAS documentation, and you can dive in here. You can completely just highlight this, copy it, and paste it, for example, into an Excel spreadsheet if you want to. So let's take a look at some more highlights that are super interesting. Let's go to Model Ops. We see the capability of using Azure HD Insights to score models directly in database. And also for the SAS container runtime, we now have support for Microsoft SQL Server databases, which is also super interesting. There's more updates, and I think in total this release, as I counted it, has over 60 new features added over the whole thing. And let's take a look at one of the examples that I have provided in here. So let's take a look at the product SAS Visual Forecasting. And we have two new plots, which I didn't showcase in SAS Model Studio. So I could showcase you the documentation that is now included within. You get a small example on how to follow this example that I showcase, and then you see the two new graphing abilities that SAS Model Studio interactive modeling for forecasting now comes with, and that is one, a new basic error plot for prediction error spectral density analysis, and then the same for the basic analysis. We can take a look at the spectral density. Super cool, super useful. Okay. Let's go into the new custom steps that have been released within the last month. Super cool new step is the ability to directly send SMTP emails from SAS Studio. We see the ability to use DQ parsing to parse a column by dividing a string into a set of tokens. we see a capability that wraps the SAS predefined sentiment analysis into a custom step, so you can easily drag and drop that into your flows, which expands the previous existing NLP step group. Again, for DQ, we had the DQ passing one already. We see the ADLS file writer. We had in a previous release talked about the ADLS file reader. Now you can also write code or Parquet files back to ADLS. Also, in the natural language processing category, we see the train text classifier and the corresponding score text classifier. We talked about this new capability of training models on top of the BERT base model to do your own large language model scoring and classification task within SAS. And now they have been nicely wrapped into custom steps to make them more easy to use. 3 highlights from around the web that I want to highlight you. The first one is diving in how to use the SAS DL Model Studio action set to import PyTorch models. A super interesting article diving into the DL Model Studio action set and guiding you through the capabilities of importing PyTorch models into SAS. Also, we see a cool article talking about mixed signals processing in SAS and separating out audio files within SAS. And then finally, a cool video talking about 5 interesting ways of using parameters within SAS Visual Analytics that I would highly recommend you check out. That's it from me, and see you next release. Bye bye.